So just piggybacking on what SP Plus just said, you know, the transformation of parking systems to new smart parking systems, it really involves the conversation around hardware and software. And what most people forget is it is a two-part conversation. You have very different needs when you're talking about both of these things. In the past, it was really just hardware. Then it was heavy hardware with software, a little bit of software installed, like the pay stations. They are a great example. And now it's sort of moving away from a lot of hardware on the street to heavy software. But now the hardware has an evolution of its own, and some of the hardware just is not as smart as the software. And so when you start to install these things, you have to start thinking about seamless integration, sustainability, and things that make sense. So when you start combining, as SP Plus does, that elevates what's there, makes it smarter, and then takes it to the future. And then you have to also think about how smart parking will integrate software and hardware-wise with the rest of the smart city platforms. Okay, but what it really comes down to is data. And this is the biggest conversation, the hottest thing of the year is data, and it will continue to be so. And when we look at how data is actually collected, there are many different ways. And in smart parking, it's smartphones, and you know, all of these things have benefits, and all of them have challenges. With smartphones, of course, that's human input, and it's not always accurate, but there's no infrastructure. With radar, you have a wide view, but you have a lot of analytics that are hard to interpret. LiDAR is very narrow and quick, and also has data that's hard to interpret. And dashboard, of course, not everything comes from a dashboard. And machine learning, which is more like robots. And so all of these things are collecting data. What do we do with the data? How great is the data? And really, garbage in is garbage out. So you want to get the best garbage you can get, and then and actually make magic. And but the everything, again, all of these things have pluses and minuses, and really should be all integrated together. And I think when you integrate smart parking into smart city, this is going to become invaluable. And so I want to touch on machine learning today. Machine vision coupled with machine learning, like I said, is like little robots on the street. And I'm going to use the example of CloudParc. CloudParc uses cameras that are Skyview and LPRs, Skyview 20 to 35 feet tall up there, and the LPRs 10 feet. And what they do is they hand off data and track items as they go through the street. What makes machine learning different from other technologies is that it learns the street. So every block is very different. So you can program what you want for the overall parking system, whatever you want to install. And as the longer it's in play, it gets smarter. And this allows you to do some very unique things. And I will show you a demonstration, but I also should point out that it protects privacy because it only does what it's told to do. So for example, if I teach it to clean, it will clean apartment A and apartment B, but it will learn the atmosphere, so it will clean them differently, but it will still clean. So when we talk about privacy issues that have to deal with cameras, it's not the same. It's more akin to a football player running with, the quarterback running down the field with the ball, and the audience is blurred. That's machine learning and computer vision. So I'd like to play the demo. Oh. It's coming.
Sure, that's
Okay.
I want to ask Wolf to come back here.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, so CloudParc combines, okay. CloudParc fully automates the whole parking life cycle. And what it starts with is occupancy detection. So first, through an app on the phone, it allows you to find the next available parking spot on the street. And once the driver parks, there's nothing for them to do. There's no meter reader. It's fully automated, and as you can see, you get your own individual timer. So the driver literally parks and goes. As you can see, the tracking of items on the street. So when you're talking about curbside management, this can be used for curbside management as well. So it picks up the license plate, puts an automatic timer on it, and the driver pays for exactly what they use, and the municipality collects exactly what it deserves. And then it also does dynamic and variable pricing. So not just on congestion or demand, it can be on all kinds of stakeholder pricing. For example, you want to give senior citizen pricing, you want to give military pricing, VIP pricing. These are all options that can be plugged into the system. And as you see, the green and red dots there, the green, obviously, the spot is open. The red, it's taken, and this will show up in real time on the computer app as well. And then the system also does automatic capture and enforcement of violations. Where that truck is, that would automatically be flagged as a violation, and a ticket can automatically be issued. So, but it doesn't have to be. It could also be sent to a handheld device for those areas that require that. So the law officer on the street could write a ticket from the data being shot to their handheld. Again, this, even though CloudParc can do all the pieces of the parking life cycle, it doesn't have to. It can integrate with the systems that are already there, so it can integrate with a pay station and make that pay station smarter by adding more data to it, and then elevating everything else and doing the automatic capture and enforcement. But as you can see, there's tracking on the street. So although it starts with parking, CloudParc has the capacity to move forward and do other smart city programs, such as I mentioned before, curbside management. This is a violation, by the way. There'll be no dismissals. The dismissals and the administrative costs would come to an all-time low, and capture would increase dramatically 2 to 4 times. But other smart city use cases could be security, could be all kinds of data counts, transportation and traffic. If somebody wanted to do a study to see what might be a relevant program for transportation or traffic, or even curbside management, it might be used for, okay, these first 2 spaces would be better off being used for e-commerce. E-commerce is only going to get bigger. So what are we going to do about that? Why are we writing them tickets when we can actually sit down and have a conversation with the e-commerce vehicle people and say, we'd rather just bill you for the usage on the street. And of course, the pickup and drop off with Ubers and Lyfts can also be done. So it just leaves the world open, because now all of a sudden what once wasn't possible is now very much possible. So does anybody have any questions about this so far? we'll do some more questions and answers. But I think the key to take away with machine learning and computer vision is that it's real time. It has the capacity to move into the smart city space with seamless integration, and it increases capture and enforcement of violation and metering and lowers expenses and dismissals. So, and this is the end, so we'll flip back to the PowerPoint.
After the YouTube link.
Yeah. That was dramatic impact, right? Okay. All right. So these new technologies create new demand and also new industries. So if you're looking at, when you've got new parking structures and you've got new tracking, then you have more demand for new data, and that demand increases more demand for new industries. It just becomes an endless cycle, and it's a very exciting time. And increasing revenues and finding new revenue streams like, pickup and drop off and e-commerce programs gets very exciting, and to tie in then into storefront and retail counts and real estate developers who want to know what's going on the street. This becomes very interesting. So I think the key is to have all stakeholders involved. And when you're talking about parking, one of the reasons why CloudParc starts with parking is not only because it's a business case, but because it affects everything else in a city, like real estate development, transportation, infrastructure maintenance, and you're talking about rights of way. So if you're talking about that, why aren't the stakeholders involved in the parking process? And it's always the parking people involved in parking, and it should be broader and bigger than that. And it should be more of a public-private partnership that involves the private citizen as well, because it affects everything that they do on a daily basis. And so we look at, again, the three buckets. What do we want, what we don't want, and what we have. And the conversation needs to actually be a three-legged stool between the private citizen, the private sector, and the public sector in regards to those three buckets. So again, everything's possible now. And it all comes down to data. What kinds of data do you want? What kinds do you need? What kinds are just going to really make you crazy? And here's what's coming down the pike. And I think that, again, we need to have these conversations well ahead of time. It's going to get, with all this new development, it can get very ugly very fast, but it can also go the opposite way and get very interesting. And we can capitalize on all of these things with just having a lot of open dialogue, a lot of strategics at the table, and being very open-minded about what really is possible and what we really want to do. And I want to thank you.